today we have Jessica Okonkwo. Welcome.
Hello, Amy, and thank you so much for inviting me today.
No problem. How are you today?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, other than the weather, but yeah.
Weather is not ideal at the moment.
It is not on our good side, yes.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to summer. I just think it lifts everyone's spirits, personally, but...
Definitely.
I suppose before we go on, would you like to introduce yourself?
Why not? You've given me the platform, so why not? My name's Jessica Okonkwo. I'm 29 years old. I'm from London, and I would say I'm a model, actress, and first and foremost, mother.
Oh.
Yes, so that's how I introduce myself, if there's anything more.
You're a full-time multitasker as well, I would say, then.
Definitely.
And we're definitely going to get into that. We may as well go into the first event, then. You said growing up as a child... you were naturally sporty. You were always kind of felt that you were quite creative as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned something there that you weren't fortunate to get the schools or extra training that you would have liked in terms of the creative arts. And in terms of sports, you loved netball, basketball. So do you want to kind of, in terms of how it's how it's affected you and influenced you, how was that then? Growing up as a child, being sporty, being creative?
So growing up, I would say that I loved sports growing up. I particularly took an interest. I think it probably started in primary school. Right from primary school, I played netball. I was selected for my primary school team. So I represented my school when we went on, and I did that for a few years. I then went to secondary school and also did the same thing there. Obviously, the passion for netball was still there. And it was a girls' school, so netball was like one of the main sports. You either loved it or you didn't. So I did it there. And then obviously you had all the other ones, or all your other teammates that would probably do like stuff outside of school, so like extra curriculum. But with those ones, you would obviously have to pay.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Obviously, you know, in London, growing up like in a single parent household, it's not easy saying, okay, cool, you want to take £500 aside a month to maybe put for one child, you know. So I kind of had to compromise in that sense that I wouldn't get the extra kind of training that everybody else got, but I thought that I was still good, so I still stuck at the sport. I still represented the school, and I think when it got to year 9, was it year 9? I think year 9, yeah. When we got to year 9, they kind of like introduced different sports, so we kind of had basketball introduced. Basketball wasn't a sport that we had done in the beginning because it was more, not manly, but it was more like a guy's kind of sport. So I had always loved basketball. I used to watch it on TV. So when they kind of introduced basketball, I kind of thought, oh, I love that. I'd rather bounce the ball as opposed to flying like a bird to catch the ball and doing the 1-2 step. So I thought, you know what, let me branch out to basketball, and I kind of loved it. And when I got to about, you know, I played both sports side by side. I played netball and I played basketball. And I think I came to like the end of my school year, maybe towards college or sixth form. And then I joined an outside school club. So I used to like train at Southbury. And Southbury Leisure Centre was one of the places that I would say I found like a close-knit basketball family. So, you know, they had the guys there and the girls there, and it was like back in the day. I don't know how it is now, but like when I look back at it, I used to be inspired by films like Love and Basketball.
Yeah.
So Love and Basketball was like one of my favourite films. So having that kind of reenactment was something that I lived for. So, you know, I had my own basketball boyfriend, you know how we do.
Oh, yeah.
And you sit courtside and you're holding their jackets, and it's like, yeah, that's my man.
See that one?
Yeah, that's mine. So that was fun. It was all part of growing up, and it added to the whole kind of teenage experience. And, you know, even with basketball and netball, I had another love, and that was acting. So I loved acting. I loved drama, and drama was maybe one of my top subjects, drama and PE, where I had got like A's. And like in like, I think year SATs, I think it was like 7s. It was back then, it was like 7, 6A or 7. They used to use numbers. I don't know how they're doing it now, but you know, those were my top subjects. So drama was something that I did take an interest to. And again,
Sorry to interrupt there. I'm just really curious to find out. You said you were interested in drama, and was that kind of so maybe midway to high school, or was it more like you always kind of knew you were interested in that?
So it would probably be from like when I was, say, 14. So like in year 9, I think I had taken it. It was part of my subjects that I had done for SATs, and I had scored, or I had gotten a really high mark, and I had done it for GCSE as well, and I got an A. So it was something that I was passionate about, but coming from an African household, drama wasn't something that at the time our parents would say was like a set career or something that you could pursue in their eyes and it be as lucrative as, say, for example, becoming a doctor or a lawyer. So even when I did say I liked acting and drama, my mum, like, even though she supported me and stuff, it was like, oh, but why don't you do law? Or, you know, she up till today, she wants me to be a lawyer. She tells me that I have the gift of the gab. I can, you know, defend the whole of England if I wanted to. You know, I can hold my own argument. But, you know, even though I loved, you know, I was still able academically, I was still creative in my mind. And, you know, I think it was that battle between going for something more academic or going for something more creative, and also having the funds as well, because at that time I had various friends that were in drama school right from then. And I even remember when it came to like colleges and stuff, I remember looking at the Brits.
Right.
So the Brits was a school at the time that was like, oh my God, like if you ever went in there, and, you know, you can hear like how many stars and how many people train there and are successful today. So I remember looking at that and, you know, getting the prospectus and doing all of that. That was all done by myself. And I remember looking at the money and I'm thinking, wow, like my mum is definitely not going to be able to afford this.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was something that it was like, oh, it was one of them ones where it was, you could see it, but I couldn't grasp it, knowing simply because I wouldn't be able to afford it.
Right.
So, you know, I looked at it and, you know, I wished I could, and there was hope like maybe, you know, money would fall from the sky and my mum would win the lottery.
Yeah.
But it was something that I knew that I wouldn't be able to afford. So I went to a normal college. But that, I would say, my passion derived from when I was like a teen, early teens. But yeah.
See, I quite like the story because I think a lot of people can relate to that. Maybe not even just within drama, but so many people, you know, it's in terms of, say, okay, I want to do something, but it's not financially, you know, viable at this time and things like that. So when you kind of saw that, you're like, okay, I can't afford to go to this particular college or whatever. You mentioned then you went to a normal college. Did your idea of what you wanted to do change then? Was it kind of off-putting, going, okay, I'll just forget that? Or were you kind of determined, you're like, no, I'm still going to keep with this?
It was half and half, really, simply because, you know, if I was maybe in, for example, the Brits, I was in a school where it like honed down on your talents and, you know, they kind of focused on that creative side a lot more, then I think I wouldn't have put it on a back burner. But because I didn't go down that route and I went down the academic route, sorry.
It's all right.
It was definitely put aside, and, you know, it became something that, you know, was more or less an extracurricular kind of thing, or an outside or an extra thing that I done on the side. So it was like when and if an opportunity came out, but I wasn't actually throwing myself out there in that sense. Which
within the creative industry,
you do need
it's
to.
It's all about exposure. It's all about new experiences, isn't it? And we mentioned this before, actually. I was saying how when someone's got a creative mind, there is pros and cons to it. So, of course, I'm not sure if you find this, you can come up with great ideas quite easily. You know, you're constantly analysing the world, thinking, oh, this could be a good idea for this, or how could I help with this? And
even with the analysis of the world, I think another reason why I probably kind of put it on the back burner was because of my confidence. I don't think that growing up, like when I actually look back at it and when I see pictures of myself, I used to cringe. I'll cringe. I'll be like, oh my God, Jess, like, what the hell was you thinking, kind of thing. So it's like, I probably wouldn't have said that, I was the most confident person to probably push myself just that little bit more. Like when I see kids these days and the generation that are coming out now, they are so confident in themselves. They are so confident, and you see kids as young as 10 and 11 throwing themselves out there. Obviously, I know social media has a lot in hand as to how we've kind of progressed in that way, but it's like growing up, I don't think I had that confidence, and that was probably simply down to maybe the lack of support, from everyone around. Fair enough, obviously I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't actually make that side quite vocal,
Yeah.
to my parents or to people around me. I kind of kept it within myself. And to be honest, I think I only really got out of my shell once I had my son.
Right. Okay, so that's an interesting one, because I was going to ask, when you did your A levels and things like that, was it after you what was the time that you realised, okay, I want to go back into this? So actually that's a great intro into the next event, actually. Motherhood, which is a huge step. I mean, that's massive. You've gone from suddenly you're thinking of, okay, what do you want in life, your goals, and suddenly this new child comes. So yeah, tell me about that. How did it kind of like change you? How did it affect you? And
Yeah, so I went through my schooling. I didn't really throw myself out there. I did a few things, I did a few things like a few uni productions and stuff like that. But yeah, I literally came about to having a child. It wasn't planned, and it wasn't something that I would say, okay, cool. We sat down and I was like, yeah, boom, I'm gonna have a child this month, or maybe next year I'm gonna have a child. But I was simply forced into the situation, and just because I was forced into the situation doesn't mean that I don't regard it as my greatest blessing, because if it wasn't for him, I don't think I would have, like I said, thrown myself out there. But I had come into it just simply because of something that I was going through physically. And I think maybe this kind of crosses both points, but this is both the second and the third point. They kind of coincide together, but it was due to endometriosis. So endometriosis was something that, amongst everything else, I was battling. And when I look back now, I look at times I missed at work, I look at times I had to miss from school, I look at times where I was even at uni, I deferred a whole year simply because of this condition. But at that time, there was no diagnosis. So it was all of these things going on. And, my teachers and my lecturers looking at me like, oh, she's only got period pains. Why is she off for just period pains? But now when it's when I've obviously got the diagnosis, now it's like, boom, this is why that I had missed a lot of time at school. This is why I wasn't able to get to work certain days, and it was simply because of that condition that I thought, what, let me have my son, me going into it. And let's just get into the whole diagnosis part. But it wasn't something that had come about in the UK, and it wasn't something that was discovered in the UK. And I think that's where we kind of failed as a country, because it was only until I went to America that it was diagnosed. So I had been having all these pains, all these problems, and going to the doctors all the time, and them fobbing me off with paracetamol or saying take a hot water bottle. And it was only till I went to America and I had actually wanted to start a life out there. So I had moved over there, and I'd probably been 9 months to a year deep in. I had started school, so I was at a really nice college, studying. But one thing just happened just in the middle of the night like that, and I got rushed to the hospital. And they had run their tests, and obviously back then, I would say, looking at the medical care system that we had in place compared to America's always advanced, I would have to say. So they had rushed me to the hospital, and they ran a few tests, and they came out with one other thing called pelvic inflammatory disease. And there was another gynecologist who had actually combated it and was like, oh, do you know what, it might not actually be that, let's run some further tests, that he has an inkling of what it can be, but he doesn't want to say it yet. So they had run the test, and then he had finally confirmed that, look, it's this condition. It is quite new. It is something that people are coming to terms with in terms of, realizing the symptoms and actually how to manage it. So all I had needed was a name. All of this time, I literally hadn't had anything. It was literally period pain.
Really?
But now I had a name, endometriosis. So from that, I could obviously go away and at least research a lot more further into it myself. But what had actually ended my time there was the fact that they had said that I would need a procedure to be done, a surgical procedure. I'm looking at my auntie thinking, oh my God, like already I need to pay about $10,000 for these tests that they have run. Jeez. Like only God knows how much.
Because they don't have that NHS kind of system.
They don't have that NHS system. And that, I think, is the only thing that puts the healthcare system, above the rest. Not even the fact that, they're quite slow in coming to terms with things, but the fact that it is free. We actually don't realise how beneficial of having free healthcare is.
It's an absolute insane. I mean, in Ireland we don't. A lot of people
you have to pay
insurance.
Okay.
But if you go to, say, the doctor, dentist, etc., then that's not insurance covered. You'd have to pay 55, 60 euros. It seems to go up a fiver every year from what I'm seeing. But I do think that, a lot of people do take that for granted. Like, we're aware of the NHS, but then I think someone mentioned recently, they said, wouldn't it be a very interesting idea if everyone, whether it's a simple, just basic doctor's appointment all the way to a really complex procedure, had an email sent to them with the billing, how much that everything's
that
cost.
You've racked up.
Exactly.
Right from the start to the finish.
Wouldn't that, if everyone got that, maybe it would give some perspective. I don't think it's a bad idea, because it's just, I mean, we don't really know. Like, I'm sure there's loads of research there. People don't go into that. They don't bother to look in, how much is it actually costing. So that's the thing. Even when it comes to people going, I'm just going to not turn up to my doctor's appointment, or I'm just not going to bother,
even
doing
informing them.
Yeah, exactly. It's things that, because it's free, we can take for granted. I'm sure not everyone does, of course, but overall, I thought that was a very interesting suggestion. I can't remember who said it, but how we should be like emailed how much it's costing.
People's mouths would literally drop, because when they brought that bill, literally for just 2 blood tests, 10 grand.
10 grand for 2 blood tests.
I said, what? And then, I said, just out of curiosity, how much is this procedure going to cost? They came out with $25,000 to do this procedure. I said, I literally did it. I was lost for words. I said, what could I do? Because, I've been dealing with this since the age of 13, and I have never once heard this terminology been said. Is there any way that I can pay you guys for my medical records, and then I can take the findings and all these research, everything that you've done, I can take it back to the UK and have the procedure done there? And they said yes. So obviously they charged me a fee. I paid the fee, and I had to come back home. I literally came back home, went to my doctors, and literally presented them with the findings. I presented them with stuff that they were not able to give me, and I could see sheer embarrassment in the doctor's face, because he hadn't been doing enough reading, or I don't know whether or not it's just simply lack of awareness, but I felt like the UK were not ready and were not aware of the disease at that time. But I literally gave him the documents, and it was quite a quick procedure, or quick consultation in order for me to actually have it done. But that was my first encounter with it. And from that, I literally thought to myself, do you know what, from doing all my research and seeing all the symptoms, and some in some cases, some women are left childless and are left infertile. I think it was that fear that I thought, you know what, let me at least have one child. I wasn't young. I wouldn't say I was, I'm not hat off to, the young mums out there that are doing it, but I wasn't 18, I wasn't 17, I was 25. So, I felt like, I'm of age to be a mum. I'm not young, why not? So at least that way, I can at least say that I've gone through the stages of motherhood. I've given birth to my own child naturally, and you know, it's mine. So I wanted to go through that, and I felt like, yeah, why not?
You mentioned here, so you said it wasn't planned, so obviously it must have come up as a shock.
Yeah.
I mean,
So after the operation, they had told me, you know, what do I want to do? And I said, I want my body to be natural. And the doctor advised that, you know, as I'm still young and, you know, I'm of childbearing age, she would advise that, you know, if I haven't had any kids, then probably I should start thinking about, you know.
oh, so in a way you said it wasn't planned, but it was. So I thought you mean it just literally you got pregnant and you were like, oh my goodness, I'm pregnant.
Oh, no.
Oh,
I just
sorry.
literally just...
You were planning to have a child at that age, but then because of the injury.
Exactly,
yes, okay,
exactly.
Now
I then had to kind of buckle up in a sense, knowing that it might come, and if it did come, I wouldn't be disputing it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
So may I ask, in terms of your, say, worries with that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because obviously there's different complications, and we're going to get into more about endometriosis in a bit, because I have some more questions about that. But if you go back to the whole kind of pregnancy stage, may I ask what your fears were about like being pregnant with that?
I think, do you know what it is? I would hate to say it, but I know Google has some crazy stuff on there, but, you know, at the same time, you can obviously see other kind of people's stories, and Instagram helped quite a lot as well, to be honest. But my fears at that time was that, God forbid, my child wouldn't make it, or, you know, I would have, you know, complications during birth, because even during labour, my mind was doing like 1,000 things, like, oh my God, like, are they going to have to take me in early, or, you know, is everything going to go as planned? And God willing, everything went as planned, everything was natural and everything like that. But it was getting into a complication, and even in the beginning stages, to be honest, like, I think the first trimester, you're not really too sure. You obviously have to hit a particular hurdle before you're like, okay, cool, this baby's here to stay, kind of thing. But during that first trimester, it's like, is the baby gonna form right? You know, knowing that, you know, my womb and everything, and there's a lot going on in there. Is the baby going to be able to find its home okay? You know, is it going to stay? Is it, you know, there's a lot of things going into your mind. And then when he was just born and everything was perfect, I was like, wow.
This love just suddenly came you just into the world, and you were like...
Exactly.
What?
I was just like, oh my God, like, if I can have that joy, every other woman deserves to have that joy. And it's very unfortunate that some women have been robbed of that joy simply because of this disease, and them not coming into term with it a lot more sooner.
Yeah.
Like, some women probably, when I was looking at it from, like, for example, there's a website, Endometriosis UK. They have a lot of information on there, but there's women on there that weren't diagnosed after 20 years. So that's 20 years of them trying, having failed marriages, failed relationships, of, you know, them being cast aside, maybe husbands thinking they're barren or there's something wrong. That's 20 years of them going through all of that to then realise, like, look, there was actually something blocking me from that blessing, or blocking me from enjoying or embracing motherhood.
Yeah.
So it's so sad, but it's something we know, and it's something that we can do better to kind of prevent now that we know. And the fact that there's so many women out there that are experiencing this. It's like your brother, it's your sister, it's the woman walking down the street. There is a lot more women out there that are dealing and battling with it without knowing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the unknown, and by the time they actually do know, it's too late.
So you were at the age, because it's going into a topic of, say, infertility and things, which is a huge thing, and I think it affects so many more men and women than we think, and of course it's nothing to be ashamed of. But when you come to say something like endometriosis, it's a good point, because perhaps this is something that they're unaware of, and maybe this is causing it.
But it's also that stigma. It's that stigma. It's that feeling embarrassed, feeling ashamed that you have to admit that there's a problem. Do you know what I mean? It's that whole they think you're going to get beaten down, or they think people are not going to come close to you. But at the end of the day, like, you need to realise everybody's endometriosis is different. Like, even in my case, mine is stage 1. But just because it's stage 1 doesn't mean I don't have as much pain as stage 6. Do you know what I mean? Or a stage 6 person, they might not have excruciating, they might not even have any symptoms, but once you've done a laparoscopy and you've opened them up, you can see there's endometriosis everywhere, but they have no symptoms and they're pain-free. So every case is different, but most importantly, I think it would be the shame and the stigma that comes with opening up about women problems, anything to do with periods or, you know, infertility. People try to they try to shy away from it, and it's letting them know that, look, you don't need to shy away from it. Everybody is going through it, more or less. Do you know what I mean? So us talking about it is what kind of cures each other and kind of lets us know that, look, you're not alone. There's other people dealing with it as well. And maybe if you just spoke about it, you could never know what help could come of it, or you might even find out something new that you didn't know. So it's about sharing, and I think we need to get used to sharing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And even whether it's endometriosis or I'm sure there's numerous other diseases that could, whether it's affecting infertility,
even mental health, like it's just about sharing in general, just opening up and speaking to people.
No, that's a very good point, because even when I go back to when you thought, right, I'm going to have a child now, or you want a child now.
Mm-hmm.
When they said this to you, they advised you to have a child younger. Did they actually mention you may not be able to have a child at all? Or how did, because obviously with those thoughts of, say, infertility or even going into the topics of miscarriages and things like this, what exactly, okay, not obviously word for word, but what did they say to you in terms of at that stage, okay, look, there's a procedure here, or this is what endometriosis is, like, okay, we advise you to have a child younger, but did they even bring up the kind of idea of you may not be able to have a child?
So with my case, the first initial stage, I think the first operation, because I've had 3 now, and I just had my most recent one in January this year. So the 6th of January, I had my 3rd operation, but that 3rd operation has spanned from between 2011 up until 2020. So that's 9 years. So within the 9 years, I've had 3 operations. The first one was in 2011. And like I said, that one was the most, I would say I was a lot more on edge, because they don't know what they're going to find. So there's no invasive procedure that they can do in order to know exactly what is going on inside. They actually have to operate in order for them to have a look. So for them to actually just go in and just say, oh, let's have a look and see, they have to operate on you. So you need to go underneath general anesthetic, you need to go to sleep, they need to cut you open, stick a camera inside, and then have a look. So there's nothing invasive. So I think that was the most daunting one, because it was like they don't know what they're going to find until they've opened me up. And once I say, you know, you're in that recovery stage of the anesthetic and you have the doctors around you and they, you know, brief you as to what they found, at that stage they were thankful that when they opened me up, they didn't see anything that was alarming. You know, there was a little here and bit that they needed to clean out, but it wasn't, say, for example, my organs were stuck together, or my fallopian tube was collapsed, or there was cysts and stuff on my ovaries. There wasn't any of that. So that alone I was thankful for. It was the second time that I had come in. So the operation I had the second time was in 2014. So at that time, that's when the doctors was like, this is your second one. Not to say that, you know, because it's your second one, you should have a child, but have you ever thought of having a child? You know, they're very careful as to what they say. They wouldn't have said that, I think you should have a child because you're going to be infertile. They wouldn't put that in your head. Because,
I suppose they can't, because, you know, some people, they don't have partners, or, you know, if someone's single, like, that's very probably in your face. Imagine if they just said something that direct. So I
think with that one, obviously my consultant, she would have obviously established whether or not I was in a relationship at the time. And, you know, that was all the stuff that they ask you before. They're like, oh, so have you ever thought of possibly having a child? Has that been something that you think of? So they try and establish whether or not you want to have kids first, and if that's something that you want, because not all women want to have kids. So I think she established that and was like, you know, she put the little bird on my shoulder and I just ran with it. I was like, My mum was standing right there. I was like, Mum, you here? It's going to be coming soon. Kind of thing. Even though my mum was like scoring me down, she was like scowling like, you better not. I'm like, Mum, you've heard her. Like, she's basically saying that I might as well kind of, think about it, kind of thing. So I think it was at that stage that I thought, yeah, boom, I'm gonna.
And you had a lovely son.
I had a beautiful baby boy.
Oh,
yeah.
Congrats to that.
Thank you.
He was born how many years ago?
So he was born in 2015. So 2015, in April. So
okay.
He's actually born in the same birthday month as me. So I remember when it was my 25th birthday, and everybody likes to enjoy a little for their 25th.
No,
but not me. Hey, I had a belly bigger than the world.
Really? Oh, bless.
So literally me and Malachi, we enjoyed our 25th together, even though he didn't know about it, but he was in there keeping me company. But yeah, I remember like it was yesterday.
Oh, brilliant. But when he was born, obviously, okay, your world changed in terms of there's just general motherhood, like how that affected you. So that's, I suppose, one question.
Mm-hmm.
What changed? Because remember we went into the drama, you mentioned this. But the other thing I just wanted to know before we go back to that is how did it affect your endometriosis? Because did it make it worse? Did it make it better? Like how?
So what they have said, or what, like when you do Google it and things come up, people are always looking for ways to make it better and how do you improve it, or pain management wise. And at the time, I remember in the initial stages, all you would do is have doctors tell you, oh, but when you have a child, it should automatically fix it, which is a lie. It doesn't automatically fix. It's temporarily at bay because, you've had a child and your hormones are kind of all over the place, but it's not a permanent fix. It does come back. The pain does come back. For some, it comes back straight away. So it's not like it makes it better, but I would say it keeps it at bay for a little bit.
So it actually helped with the pain?
It did.
Wow.
It did.
Didn't expect that.
What doctors were actually saying, is like, oh, once you had a cure, because in my head, when I had Malachi at that initial stage, I thought, okay, if I've had him, like this should probably rectify the situation. This should cure me. Because that was what the doctors at the time had, put in my head. The fact that, once you have a baby, it's like an automatic fix, which
really?
Isn't.
And was it the American doctors, the UK doctors?
The UK doctors.
They told you that?
Yeah,
wow.
The UK
That's a big statement.
That is a big statement, but that is what, and like even when you do Google it and you look online, there's a few misleading stuff that will tell you, once you've had a child, for some people, maybe for some, but in my case, I didn't see it as a permanent fix because I'm still dealing with it and I'm 5 years on.
So when you say, because they got it in your head like, okay, it's going to be cured once you've had the baby, and suddenly it came back, was that a real shock? Was that like something that you were now scared of? Were you like, oh my goodness, what's happening? Or were you kind of like, oh no, I didn't really believe them anyway? Do you know what I mean?
I would say I probably got my first, because people listening to it that do have endometriosis, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but, the pain, when it comes, it comes out of nowhere. It's like a sharp pain, like a contraction.
Wow.
So I would say that I probably even dealt with that whole labour stage. It was a breeze for me because I literally have contractions every month kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a breeze for me. But it comes if and whenever it likes. So I would say my first encounter with it after having Malachi was probably 6 months in. So 6 months in, Malachi was 6 months, I probably would have been doing something and the sharp pain would have come out of nowhere. And in my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, it's back. In my head, obviously, I had thought that I had been pain-free for like 6 months. So I'm thinking, wow. I'm thinking, is it gone?
Yeah.
Like, the doctor was right. Like, once you've had a child, it's a quick fix and it's never going to come back again. And then 6 months down the line, I have this sharp pain. In my head, I'm thinking, am I still healing from childbirth or is it back kind of thing? And it was fully back. So, yeah.
How did it affect, say, you in terms of motherhood? Like, because I can imagine with these sharp pains, if it shocks you and you're holding this newborn baby, there's all these other fears. I mean, naturally, as a new mum, there's all these new worries that come in because
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
now protecting this beautiful little boy that you have, and it's
Yeah.
like, so did that kind of, how did you manage with the stress and worry of that?
So because seeing as I've been dealing with it quite a while, my family were very much aware of what was going on, and I was thankful enough to have my brother, my sister, my mum, my partner was there, my friends were there, so I had a lot of hands on deck
Good support
in
system.
terms of, helping out and, doing what they needed to do. But it's just the mental side, I would say. I think with endometriosis, it does play with your mind a little, because it's like you have these days where you're good, and then you have these days where it's like you can barely walk, like you can barely do the things that you want to do. And it's like you kind of ask yourself why, because I found myself questioning, looking back, as to, obviously they've said that there isn't really a cause. So there isn't a cause for why you have it. You just literally have it. So I even remember just sitting in my house thinking, looking back at my years thinking, what did I do along the way that would have warranted this or would have caused it? Looking back at how I lived my life, you know, was it the lack of, nutrients, minerals? I just don't know it. I look back and I'm like, why me? And then you have the days where it's like, it's not in my head, but then people may think it's all in your head, because you can be really happy the next day. I can be so active, out and about. And then there's days where I don't even want to leave my house. I just want to be in my bed. I can sleep for the whole day, kind of thing. So it's really a high and a low, and it's finding that fine line of kind of how to balance it. And I
It's very
think,
draining, highs and lows. It's like, because obviously everyone's different and everyone has highs and lows.
yeah,
But I can imagine this has just amplified them, quite significantly. And then you've also got this new baby, so suddenly there's that worry as well. Before I go on, I should have really mentioned this earlier. I'm sure the listeners are going to be like, hallelujah, she's asking this. What is endometriosis? I should have really said that earlier. But you know what, guys? Better late than never. So can you just briefly explain? Of course, we'll come back to it, because then I want to ask another question on motherhood. But yeah, I think just because I'm sure there's
just briefly,
so many
just
people.
outline it for them.
So many people are going
So if you want it in kind of the scientifical term, I would say endometriosis is when the lining of the uterus grows outside of the womb. So, for example, as a woman has a period, everything usually flows downwards. So everything flows naturally down.
Yeah.
With endometriosis sufferers, they have the downward flow, but then they also have a back flow. So the backflow of blood then basically deposits on its neighbouring organs, or it can get stuck like on the ovaries or the fallopian tube. There basically isn't a way for the blood to get out of the body. So it basically harvests itself.
Oh yeah, I can imagine
on stuff.
pain is coming from now.
And for example, when you do have your period, where the pain comes from is when you have your period, those tissues that have migrated from the womb and are in different places, they basically have a period as they would usually do. So wherever they are, they bleed.
Whoa.
Do you get?
Yeah.
So they will bleed, and that's where I said where the pain comes from is as it's bleeding, there isn't a way for it to get out of it. So there isn't a way for it to escape. So it causes a lot of pain. And that's when you have to have the surgery, and they go in, they clean it out, remove all of that. So sorry listeners, it's a bit gory, but that's...
Anyone who's passed out, guys, you can get back up then.
That's the kind of summary.
Oh no, blood. Yeah, there's so many people.
That's what I'm saying. It's being able to not be shameful about it and just speak about it. It's something that we go through. It's something that your mother, your sister, your wife is experiencing. Blood is blood.
But yeah, thank you for explaining that. Obviously, but that's the reality of it, isn't it? It's not a nice thing to listen to, but at the same time, imagine having it. That's the way I would say. So, going back very quickly, when you had Malachi, say, not just the endometriosis side now, but just motherhood in general.
Yeah.
How did that change your life? Without stating the obvious, okay,
Yeah.
now I've got a baby now, before I didn't. How did it change you personally?
Do you know what? It puts everything into perspective for you, because now you have, you've gone from being your mother and your father's child. You now have something that depends solely on you. That's yours. You literally can't move. That's your handbag.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, that baby goes too. So it's like putting things into perspective of, I've got a little one now. What are the things that I would do as a parent that possibly I didn't have? And being a creative, I wanted him to also have that kind of creative mind, be expressive of himself, not feel like he has to be in a shell. And if I'm thinking all of that, that in turn will make me think, do you know what? How can I be advising and doing this for my son, and I'm also not being true to myself? There's things that I still want to do. There's still dreams that I still want to live. I'm not done yet. I am not just here to just be someone's mum.
Yeah.
I want to be someone's mum and something else.
So it boosted almost to going back to the first point we mentioned about the kind of creative arts and stuff like that. So how long, how old was Malachi when you went, okay, I want to kind of get back into this now?
So I would say that I think Malachi was... So when did I go for the casting? Malachi was, I think, 9 months before I went for my first casting. So, and this was a model casting.
Right.
So prior to having Malachi, I wouldn't have considered myself a model, simply because I wasn't the shape that I saw on TV or in the magazines. Like, I was tall, and like I played basketball and netball, and I had been told, like, by my aunties and uncles, oh, you're really tall, have you never done modelling before? And I just looked at them like, oh no, but I play sports though, kind of thing, But once I had Malachi, and the whole world was moving in this whole body positive movement, I was like, do you know what? Let me take a crack at it. So I went for my first casting, and I was blessed to have met an angel. Her name's Agnes, and she was the project manager at the time and the one that was in charge of the castings for the models for Afro Hair and Beauty. So I had gone to that casting, but prior to that I was shaking. I was like, oh my God, I've never done this before. She's probably, I don't know if she's going to think I'm fat. I've just had a baby. It's not like I went when I was slimmer. Do you know what I mean? So all of these things were running through my head. What if she doesn't like me? What if I don't walk right? And I was pleasantly surprised that when I actually did go there, first thing she had said was, oh my God, you are beautiful. And she's French, so she had this really strong French accent. And she and they're quick, they're on the ball, they want you to do things very, very quickly. So she's like, okay, cool, put your shoes on, and you're going to walk for me, and you're going to do this. And I'm like, oh my God, this is quite fast paced. And she asked me this question. After I finished walking, she was like, yeah, so how old are you? Are you signed? And like in my head, I'm thinking, oh my God, she thinks I'm signed. Like, I'm not
Fair
signed.
play to you, girlie. That's all I can say. You must have had some impact, because
I was like, I'm not signed. But you know what it is? I think even though I say that I'm not a confident person, where the actor in me kicks in, I know how to do the face. I know how to put that hat on. So you would think that I am Miss Sasspot, but I am not. I'm a rabbit inside, like, do you know what I mean? So I had given it to her, and then after I went back to myself, and she was like, how old are you? And I was like, I told her I was 20, how old was I? 27? No, I was 25. No, I was 26 at the time. So I'd been like, oh, I'm 26. And she's like, 26? I thought you were 17. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a good 10, 11 years off my age. And I do get told I look younger, but...
So do I. It's mad.
Do you know, I embrace it.
Yeah,
because it's like when I'm actually 50, you guys will think I'm 30.
Oh, yeah.
So...
I look at J-Lo, I'm like, right, that's it.
She is still strutting. How old is she, 60?
She's 50 now, but my goodness. I mean, it's one of those things that, okay, obviously, as people can argue, celebrities have got the best creams, the best, dermatologists, everything. But
they have the money to look after themselves, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think with age, it is an interesting one because I sometimes now have this thing where when people ask how old I am,
Yeah.
I ask them to guess. It's a new thing I do. I always go, how old do you think I am? Because I get ID'd at the door.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Me and you both.
But yeah, I went to America. One of the times I went when I was in New York, and I asked these girls I've never met before in a bar, and I said, how old do you think I am? And they both said 35. And I went, wow, okay.
Wow.
But then another person recently said I was 17, and another person then said I was 34 recently. So I thought, right. And then a lot of people just guessed kind of like in the 20s, which is right. So I thought, you know what? I've gotten to the point where I am what I am. Mm-hmm. It's kind of about me looking after myself realistically. It doesn't actually matter. But as I say, if I'm going to be, most of the time I look younger.
Yeah.
But I'm going with it. So yeah.
I'm definitely going with it because I'd rather look younger than look older.
Yeah. There we go.
That's where we go. But yeah, it was literally.
You're at this model shoot now, and she's
strutting your stuff, strutting my stuff. You know, she's giving me the call back on the spot, and I'm like,
wow.
My God! First thing, obviously, I'm gonna call my mum and let her know. But mum, like, you wouldn't believe I went for a casting for fashion, like to be a model, mum, and I got it.
Yeah.
Like, so the show was a success, but I think it wasn't until I had that first casting that kind of propelled me into it. You know, that first experience, that first walk, you know, just the atmosphere kind of made me think, you know what? I actually like this. I actually like it. I want to do more.
Mm.
You know, so it kind of made me apply myself out there a lot more and just go for a lot more things.
And I'll just tell the listeners there, I recently saw a video of Jessica doing, she was working the runway. I saw on Instagram, and you were absolute queen of the runway there.
Oh, thank you.
So fair play. I can see how it's interesting, because I haven't known you too long.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting to hear your kind of background stories and that, and then obviously I'm then seeing what I'm seeing on Instagram, but this is why I like this kind of thing, because there's a whole story behind that even Instagram post. You know what I mean? It's like you see someone, and even when you mention you can put on the front, you can act confident. How do you still do that, or do you still find you're actually kind of showing yourself now and you really are just confident?
So it's even good you even said that, because you know, I think the way social media is going now, and you know, the fact that you have so many trolls and you have so many people that just bring you down, I would say that I still am a bit kind of finger like I'm still kind of at bay in terms of letting myself fully go. I would say that I'm doing better because I'm showcasing myself a lot more, but like my close friends would know, I was more of a, like, talking about social media, I was more of a Snapchat person, simply because on Snapchat, you know, I had people that I personally knew. So Snapchat was where, you know, I posted about my son when he was born. You know, it's quite intimate. Right. So it's things that I have control over, whereas Instagram is a lot more worldwide.
Yeah.
So where I started doing a lot more creative stuff and I was more active in it, I felt like I needed to kind of move from Snapchat over to Instagram. But in order to do that, I would need to overcome some inner battles within myself. And like I said, it was confidence was still at my confidence and self-esteem in that sense of just being free and not caring what people think. That was still something that I was still battling with. But exactly, I was trying. So I think it just clicked in me. I was like, do you know what? People are either going to love you or hate you. If I want to go further in what I'm doing, I kind of need to be open-minded in that sense, knowing that people are going to either love you or hate you. So all you can truly be is yourself, is how I saw it. But
I try to say this all the time, but what I've said to people is, and myself, this is the thing, it's not just about me preaching, it's almost practicing what I preach, and we're quite similar in that regard to, we're not always confident, because I'd say we're stereotypically, when people meet us, they think, oh, they're extroverts, they're bubbly, they're confident. It's not always the case, because I love speaking to people, I love generally meeting new people, but it doesn't mean I want to do it all the time.
Yeah.
But with the social media thing, I'm starting to relate to this now, because I had to tell myself, like, I now know, okay, when say a troll or someone gives you a nasty comment on social media, it really is just they're just projecting their own insecurities and negativity.
Definitely.
And that's fact. But what I have to say to myself, and even what I say to others, is there's a difference between just knowing that, but actually understanding it's a whole different thing. And understanding it means that it's affecting your life now for the better, in the sense that you do understand that and you're not letting it get to you. So that was something that I had to work on. And it sounds like that you kind of had a similar journey with that. It's about really, really understanding that.
Exactly.
It's nothing to do with you. It's all about them.
Exactly that. And once you've kind of come to terms with that, you kind of see the progression, or you see where someone has started and their journey.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. You see it. You see people becoming a lot more in tune with themselves. They're becoming a lot more confident in their craft. And I think that was also something that I needed to be, is comfortable in my craft, comfortable knowing that I'm kind of doing the best that I can do in what I'm applying myself to do.
Yeah. No, and that you just really, that's all you can do. And I think with someone as well in the creative industry, for those who aren't unaware of the creative industry, it's essentially acting, modelling, presenting, all those kind of jobs. Stereotypically not 9 to 5, put it that way.
But it's the most enjoyable job ever.
Exactly. I totally agree. Well, personally, I find that a lot of people I know in it tend to have more than one job, including myself. We just do whatever comes
our way.
What
it is? It's wearing a few hats, I would really say. Is. You wear the hat as, for example, Amy the presenter, Amy the model, because I've seen you strutting your stuff. And
that was the club girl. No, I'm just kidding.
You know what I mean? And Amy, the all-round host. So it's like you wear a few hats, but the hats all intertwine with each other.
Yeah, they do.
There isn't one without the other. And one can also branch into the other. So it's being able to, like you said earlier, be a multitasker.
Yeah. But and even with the creative industry, because I always felt like, okay, I was a creative person. It's only since I graduated I truly realised I actually thought at one point I was the only person like me. And I actually, serious, I was like, okay, not in terms of, bubbly or extrovert or whatever, because actually I think I'm more of an ambivert, both essentially, not just pure extrovert, but anyway. And suddenly I'm meeting these people in the creative industry and I go, wow, I've met more me's. Like, as it is so
You're
weird.
You're not the only one that thought like that. Like, literally,
this is
I'm not going to lie. That's probably why we even connected, to be honest, because, prior to that, not to say that, there was anything wrong with the friends that I had, but I hadn't really applied myself in a way where I was surrounded by people that were doing exactly the same as me. But it was only once I did that, I started thinking like you, like, wow, there's actually people like me. Yeah. There's actually people that enjoy the same stuff creatively that I do.
All have multiple jobs, all figuring it out.
Exactly.
Even the social media thing, because some people might argue, why should you be on social media? In the creative industry, it's all about exposing yourself. Yeah. It's about getting out there and things like that. And unfortunately, that comes with highs and lows with it, just like any job, I suppose. But yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned about even battling trolls and stuff like that, because 90% of my social media is actually very positive and I get really nice things, and then you get the odd few. But
to be honest, I haven't had any trolls, but it's like when you see celebrities that are already made it, that are already up there. There's me climbing the ladder trying to get my way on the freaking trying to get my foot in the door, and there's people there that already have their foot all the way in the door and already at the top of the ladder, and they're having to battle things that would affect you and I. So when I see that, it's like sometimes you forget that they're human as well.
Oh, totally.
So when when you see them, it's like, oh my god, like they're having it really hard, or they're having it this and that way. It's like, could I be as strong as that? Do you know what I mean? It's coming to terms with, look, if you are to get into that position, this is what you're going to have to deal with. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, because there's two sides to this. When it comes to, say, well, it's obviously in my opinion here, celebrity culture and things like that. A lot of people, and I've seen trolling on, say, celebrities, Instagram or whatever, it's all about, well, you're rich and famous, so therefore you shouldn't complain about anything. But actually, mental health is the dominant thing here, and it doesn't matter how much money you have, how much fame you have. If you're constantly getting trolled, and I think, was it, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, was it like Stormzy that was a while ago said that the human brain is not actually built to handle thousands of comments, whether it be positive or negative, because you can either go one or the other way, you know? And it's true, you know, if you go back thousands of years ago, we were just in like villages, communities, whichever, and it's like, so suddenly we're on social media and it's, people are, you know, whether it's negative or positive, I think spread the love, that's what I say. I don't think we can get enough positivity, so I say go for it. But yeah, I all kind of recently, especially the fact that I'm really embracing myself in the creative industry, I've gone, right now I kind of get it a bit more. Obviously, I'm very much building myself as well, but it's, when I see it now and there's negative comments, and I was like, oh no, it doesn't matter if they give negative comments because they're rich and famous. And it's like, that means actually nothing, really. When you're getting all this negativity, it's just not healthy. So
it's not healthy at all. And, you know, just because, like you said, just because they're celebrities doesn't mean they're not human. Good or bad, we all hurt from comments. And I think it's people remembering that, look, those words will go a long way. Even though that person is, you know, they put that poster face on, you don't know what they do behind closed doors.
Totally.
Like, just because they're out there and they get papped and they're made up and they're dressed up really nice and they're smiling, doesn't mean that they are happy people.
Yeah.
Behind closed doors.
I've tried to be
just remembering that.
As honest as I can about it now. So even like when I think it's okay to share your successes, especially in the creative industry. We almost need to, because that's actually how you get found, how you get, you know, discovered. But I've really tried, I'm not sure, I mean, actually you have as well, I've seen this. You've showed other sides of your life, not just all glitz and glam. So that's very admirable.
And that's what I'm trying to do, because like I said, Snapchat gets all of that. Snapchat gets my whole, you know, me at home, me with the little one, me doing the school run, me taking my son to the park. So Snapchat gets all of that, but it's then kind of migrating that to also Instagram. But it's then questioning myself, does Instagram deserve to get a side of that? Do they deserve to get that intimate side of me? But then it is still you. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It is still you. So it's like I said, coming to terms with what you want to put out there, because once you've put it out there, you can't take it back. Yeah.
But I think, as you said, but I mean, I think it's a great thing that you actually show some other sides, because people are going to see that and go,
she's relatable
and she is so human as well. And it's like, I think I realised that Instagram, like, or all social media, you can use it effectively, or you can use it where you can follow the crowd and you just all perfection. And I realised that it's probably not the way forward, to be honest.
And to be honest, what you've even said was actually something that a close friend of mine actually said. He had said that where you're a mum now, why don't you use your son a lot more, as in broadcast him a lot more, because you're still doing what you're doing and you still have a child. You can connect to those mums that are probably in the same boat as you, that are thinking, you know what, I've got a child. Like, I could do what she's doing.
Jordan Dunn does it. She's a good advocate for that.
Like, she I don't know. I remember seeing a picture of her on the runway, and she was, I think she had said she was 8 months pregnant. And the designer had concealed her pregnancy within the garment.
Wow.
In a way that she still walked the runway. I can't remember what designer it is, but when I go on my Instagram, I'll let you know.
Yeah, no, it is interesting to look at that. And as I say, social media is changing and things like that as well. But I think, once you be yourself on it, you can still show, you know, nice pictures, things like that. This is, of course, my opinion. Doesn't mean I'm right. But I've realised that it's about the kind of balance, really, because people will see that and will only kind of go into this vicious circle if everyone starts posting everything perfect. So, but that will just lead us on, because we're coming to the end now. I wanted to make sure I mentioned this, because we mentioned a lot about endometriosis going back. Awareness months in March, and I just really want to let people know about this. What have you got any kind of comments about that?
So with endometriosis awareness month, it is March. I'm a radio presenter as well, so I do radio presenting on Unity Extra, and I was actually dedicating a segment. So I would dedicate one day in March, preferably the first week, to it, and that would literally just be raising awareness literally around the disease, talking about it. A few volunteers will even come on as well and just literally speak about their brushes with endometriosis as well, whether or not they're sufferers or their family to sufferers, just basically tell their story. Also, there are marches as well that I believe will commence in London. I believe you can find information as to regards to where those marches are. I think they'll probably be around near the House of Parliament, but you can find it on endometriosis.org. So, no, actually, it's endometriosisuk.org. So if you go, that's www.endometriosisuk.org. You can find all the information you need to find on there regarding the focus groups, a lot more information, people's stories, and I believe there's a run as well in July that I'm actually going to participate in.
Fair bloody play to you.
So you better be coming as well.
Oh, wow. Of course, I better get training there, lads. I can barely run 100 metres.
I think it's a 10k run. So
okay, we're going to see about that. I've got bad joints, so this is going to be very interesting.
Don't we all? Don't
yeah, exactly.
Make it slow for you. You can take it slow for a little.
I'll have the crutches by the end. No, I'm joking. Just in the very last thing, just before we go on.
Yeah.
Your influence. Have you any kind of main influence in your life that is kind of got you to where you are now?
I would say, as with most people, my number one influence would be my mother.
Yeah.
Simply because as a Nigerian native and not somebody that was actually born here, she came here alone. So she came to this country all by herself and, you know, no family, no friends. And she raised 3 kids. So,
fair play.
You know, a strong woman like that is what I saw growing up. And that could only propel me to also be a strong mother. I saw a lot of qualities in her that I would also translate and, you know, trickle down to my kids. But yeah, just seeing her strength and her determination to raise us 3, because my brother was not the easiest pot.
Fair, but no, I really like that. And yeah, shout out to all the mums out there. Last but not least, have you got anything to say to the listeners? Any words of encouragement or anything like that?
So I would just say, literally, if you're a mum and you still have dreams and aspirations, you know, you still have things that you want to do, you feel like you are not done yet, I would say keep on going. I'm still going. I'm not perfect. I'm not where or hardly where I want to be, but I know consistency pays off, determination pays off, and just sticking at what you love should be enough to get you where you need to be. Just stay true to yourself. And also, if you are an endometriosis sufferer, an endo warrior, you are not alone. I'm your endo sister. You can always shoot me a message on Instagram. I'm always here for a chat. If there's any advice or any questions that you guys have, you can find me on Instagram at Jessie, that's JESSIE_CHINKZ. So that's Jessie_Chinks. So you guys feel free to shoot me a message. If you want anything, or if you have anything that you want to ask me, I'm there.
That's very sweet of you. I've actually also set up an email, which I'll hear in a second anyway in the outro. But
okay.
I just want to take another opportunity to really thank you, because it's been a really, really insightful story. It's been an educational one.
Thank you so much.
But thank you for being so honest about your experience as well. I really appreciate that.
And thank you for having me here and, you know, giving me this platform for me to tell my story and, yeah, just literally share it, really. Thank you so much.